About a year and a half ago or so, thereabouts, I don't know. Time's just a construct. But anyway, I digress. We found this brand called Montech at Micro Center while we were doing this like budget build challenge of like, what kind of build could we do for $1,000 at the height of things costing stupid expensive? And we were actually quite impressed. The Montech brought a ton of value and gave us some features and stuff we didn't expect for the price. And then after that video, Montech discovered us. And so they sent us the Montech Sky 2, the best value. And this one's high end. It just says I end, but there's an H there because it's covered by the, you know. Get amazing prices on the brands you love at Micro Center. Micro Center has over 30,000 items in stock, including desktops, laptops, computer components, monitors, TVs, and more. Not sure which parts to choose for your next build? Then use Micro Center's custom PC builder to find compatible parts, create your parts list, add them to your cart, and use same-day pickup at one of Micro Center's 25 locations nationwide. And if you're not comfortable building it, one of Micro Center's professional builders can build it for you as fast as same day for a fee. And if you need ideas for a build, then head to Micro Center's Build Showcase for great build inspiration, or submit your build for others to see. To see everything that Micro Center has to offer, click the link in the description below. So I gotta unbox this right now. I wanted to unbox all this on camera with you guys because you guys like to see the unboxings to know exactly what you're getting. Yeah, Montech, so this isn't a Micro Center video or anything like that. In fact, Montech obviously sponsored today's video by sending us this. I just stabbed my table! Bound to happen. Anyway, they sent us this case to take a look at. They sent us 3 of them actually. There's a black, a gray, and a Morocco blue. Or in my case, because I'm blue-yellow colorblind, Morocco gray. All right, so here we go. Now they got the protection off. You can see, like I said, this one comes with more high end. It is one of those cases that gives you kind of some compartmentalized bottom pieces here. And we've got this is very trendy now. Like the last couple of years, a lot of cases now put fans on the motherboard tray area. It kind of makes sense. It's another area to bring air in or exhaust it depending on your needs. But this is a mid-tower ATX case, but it's somewhere else on the box. It actually says middle tower. Oh, yeah, right here, middle tower case. So it is an ATX, micro ATX, and mini ATX. Has a Type C. Dimensions are 430 millimeters by 215 millimeters by 490 millimeters. There's 7 PCI slots, up to 400 millimeter length of graphics card support. 168 millimeters worth of CPU cooler height. Apparently for the pre-installed fans, wow. So there are 2 120 millimeter reversed ARGB PWM fans. I'm not sure what reversed means. That's on the side, so I guess that means pulling air in. We have 1 installed on the shroud. So I guess what you see in the picture is what you get. You get the 2 here, the 1 on the shroud, and the 1 in the exhaust. So that's kind of nice. I feel like the shroud fan is probably unnecessary. Personally, I'd rather have one on the top than there. Yeah, so we have fan support on the top for 2 120 millimeters, which I would personally put that up there. But that's just me. And then radiator support. On the side, we could fit up to a 240. On the front, we could fit up to a 360. Or on the top, we could fit a 360, and on the rear, a 120. So a lot of support. The thing is, because it is a mid-tower case, you're gonna have to be really kind of selective on where you occupy these radiators because they can interfere. Like a 360 on the top and a 240 on the back panel, the height of the 360 coming down with the fans could interfere with the depth of that radiator. So there's things that you have to keep in mind when you go to, you know, outfit these types of mid-tower cases with rads. So let's see what we get inside. I chose the blue specifically for this video because of the fact that not a lot of case manufacturers will go with these funky colors because, to be honest, they don't sell as good as black. I've seen it a lot in comments. This case is awesome, but they should make it in white. And most case manufacturers would tell you white sells like 1 to like every 8 cases for black. And so it's one of those things where with it being a lower, well, I guess I had undone the tape on the bottom, whatever. With there being a low adoption rate of certain case colors, that means the amount of them that they manufacture are less, which means less of a bulk discount on manufacturing, which makes that case actually more expensive to produce, which is why oftentimes you'll see like a white case costing 10 or 20 bucks more than a black case. So they have to make up that manufacturing cost because they're not making it up in volume of sales. I'd have to assume blue would be even less than that. Unless there's enough people out there going, I want something different, please lay the case down removing the glass side panel. Okay, I'll follow the rules. I'll be a lemming. That's because they just don't want you to drop it. Tempered glass does not do well with corner impact. Like that. This is how we know. There it goes. All right, so here's the extra bits you get with it. You know what I wasn't expecting to see here are blue grommets that match. I'm kind of torn on that personally. I feel like the black would have been a nice contrast because you have the black on the fans. Now, one thing I want to point out, yes, these are pulling air in. So these are intake fans. The fans feel nice. Their RGB is true RGB, ARGB anyway. One of the things we learned about the Montech case we used in the past, which was like 50 bucks or super cheap or 60 bucks, something like that. They were RGB, but they weren't adjustable or controllable in any way. They just had different colored lights in them that were static. So it looked like rainbow, but it didn't move. But you know what, when it was like I think it was like 50 bucks for that case that came with like 3 in the front and all the fans and stuff outfitted, it was really hard to argue with that. Captive thumb screws on the case side panel, which is nice, so you don't lose them. So this comes off. Magnetic fan filter. So you can take it out easily, you just stick it back when it's time to clean it. If you check this out right here, you can see these fans are recessed in. You can see this kind of the way it kind of protrudes in here. It's recessed in from the motherboard tray, which will help with interference from the top rad hanging down. So had this been flat and they're mounted sticking out and you add 25 to 30 more mils of a radiator sitting here, it can interfere with this. However, the top piece is offset with multiple mounting angles there. So by pushing the rad towards the glass away from the motherboard tray means that you could occupy the 240 area here with a rad and a 360 rad on the top potentially without any conflict. Now we'll start to get a little crowded over here because if you're also putting a pump and the reservoir and everything over here, you're gonna have a lot going on. So you need to be mindful of where your pipes are coming out. I'd probably put the pipes on the 360 or the top 240 or whatever on this side. That way you have a little bit extra room. That's something to keep in mind right there. It did say that there was a mounted fan. Wait, that's not pre-installed. That's just pre-placed in the box. Okay, well, I mean, we got it. Remember how I said I wouldn't put it there anyway? I would put it on the top? Now you can just do that. Now the reverse fan, what does that mean? Typically your airflow goes from the side with no cage, that's this cross, these, you have to have the hub mounted somehow, so that's these support pieces for the hub. Typically it will go from the open side, exhausting through the cage. This is the opposite. It pulls in through the cage and exhausts towards the front. Ironically, the cage design is still designed with the aerodynamics of that way involved, like the way they're scooped and they're pointed. So which means it's pulling air through the flat piece. One thing they didn't do in their design was flip that piece around too, so it was smoothing the air as it goes through. So these are reversed, that way you get the pretty side facing you as it's pulling air in, because see the blades turn this way and the cage is on the backside. Now the one on the rear is a standard non-reverse. So this is going in the direction that you would expect, that it's pulling air from the open side and exhausting it through the rear. So I just wanted to point that out, that if you're the kind of person that has built enough systems and you'd look at this and go, oh, okay, that's the exhaust side, and well, that's not. It's reverse, that's what the reverse means. So that's nice, because otherwise you would end up getting the cage side, which is not as pretty. There's plenty of ventilation in terms of, perforation and grill in this case for it to be able to actually exhaust it. I mean, look, all the IO shields or all the IO covers here are ventilated. You got vents above the fan right here, obviously the whole top. So I wouldn't be too worried about it causing too much positive pressure. It would just push air out elsewhere. But this will help direct the airflow towards it. But looking at the rear here, you can see you get your cable channel in the center, which has Velcro straps. We get an ARGB and PWM fan controller, which is not something you typically get when you start dealing with value cases. Now I say value case loosely because this is a $93 case, 93 US dollars. But I think you're getting a lot for that money. You're getting 4 fans that are RGB. You're getting the controller, which is nice here. Has extra slots, so you have 3 more available to it. Plus you have 3 more ARGB headers available to it. And then of course you've got your header that on the other end just terminates to a PWM. Well, this is your front panel connector there, which by the way is one single header, which is nice now because people have learned front panel connectors are standardized in the way that they're laid out. So now instead of trying to put individual little plugs in, just plug in one whole header and you're done. But anyway, here's your input to your ARGB right there. And then you have your input to your PWM fan right there. So you can still control everything in here with your motherboard or whatever software you have this connected to, whatever controller. You could even controller to a controller. This is just a splitter. And then everything can work off of one piece of software, whatever that piece of software is that you choose to use. So it's nice to see the inclusion of this now. And it's not proprietary in any way. You can plug this up to anything like I just said. Or you can remove it entirely if you don't want to use it. But anyway, here is our extra fan screws and motherboard standoffs and mounting screws and such. And here. So in here you get additional zip ties, Velcro straps, a decent amount of zip ties actually. Way more than you typically get with a case. Wow.
Dang.
Okay.
That might actually be enough.
I know. You get your pass-through screws right here for mounting this, because look, see how this has this sort of a long, I don't know, tube, I guess? So you can mount that, and then the screws go through here into that side panel. So the mid plate right there. So you get screws for that. They give you a BIOS speaker. Normally cases don't give you BIOS speakers. You know what? The beep is back. I like the beep, by the way. Hard drive mounting screws, motherboard mounting screws, AIO screws. And then these are dust caps. These are dust caps specifically for, wow, I'm blind. So these are dust caps for the IO or the front panel stuff up here that you may not be using. So you actually get a USB-C plug cap, you get 2 USB caps, and then you get the little plunger, they're like little plunger caps to stick into your headphone and microphone jack. So if you're not using them, with them being on top, dust can collect in there. I've never seen anybody come up with this before. Anyway, if you have seen a case manufacturer come with those plugs, comment down below, Jay, you're an idiot. This brand is the one that has them. So here's our removable tray. This is a 2.5-inch mount only, and that's just gonna be specifically because of the gap between here and the side panel. 3.5-inch drive is gonna be too fat to mount right here. Those are gonna have to go down here. This is also removable. So if you're planning on using a super long power supply, or you want to utilize this basement area for cable management / maybe mounting a pump or something down here, remove the thumb screw, and that just comes out like that. It has pre-installed rubber mounts, which is nice for the drive. However, it is not a sled type, it is not a quick disconnect or a hot swap. You are gonna have to pull out the cage, mount the drives to it, and then put the cage back in and put in your plugs. Some of the trade-offs you get when you have to go with a lesser price point. Now, if I want to remove the front side to get to the mesh, I like that you can remove the mesh, because let's say you want to do a custom paint job on this or something. Being able to remove this mesh, not have it be riveted in there, is actually quite nice. That one comes off just like that. And then here's the other 2 screws right here. Interesting that with the amount of vent space that's here, this is the only openings right here. I would have expected it to be a little bit bigger. I'm assuming this is just for case rigidity, structural rigidity. So this is the only place air is gonna actually be making its way in through there. But like I said, if you wanted to like custom paint these grills a different color for some accent or something, you could easily get to those. That'd be kind of neat. You know what you could also do if you wanted? I would put a small screen behind each one of these.
Super ultra wide one.
Oh yeah, that super long one.
Yeah.
The downside is you do that, you lose any ventilation from right here. However, the bottom still has obviously its intake for the power supply, so that's not gonna be affected. Oh yeah, too, you could just put a screen here. Right, modify this in some way or 3D print something to replace this. Put a screen there, that'd be cool. You know what, it's like, you know Marquez is like matte black everything. We're just like LCD screen everything, even my glasses. So the standoffs are already pre-installed, which is nice. They're pre-installed for a standard ATX case. As you can see though, eATX is not gonna work because of the fact that it will overhang right here. Even standard ATX, there's not a lot of room between the fan and the grommet right here. So this is something you have to keep in mind. With it being recessed like this, but also a short case, your wires are gonna be kinda making an aggressive bend back through there. So definitely keep that in mind when it comes to clearance. I do like that we have a grommet right here. That way we don't have to try and run extra cables through here for our graphics card. They can just come right up through here. The rubber grommets feel very thin. Be careful pushing wires through. Maybe guide them, otherwise you might rip off some of the actual grommet. So when you're pushing your cables through, just keep in mind that these could tear off if you really, cables will get kind of grabby and they'll pull that. Now, I have torn grommets in the past, something to keep in mind. I just want to point that out. Now it's a mid tower, and we thought, what would be the ultimate challenge? Can it fit an ROG Strix in there? Yes. You know what? That actually looks kind of cool.
good.
It looks kind of cool. Well, it wouldn't be cool, but it looks kind of cool, like just filled in with graphics card like this.
I think if we had the white edition of that
Yeah.
ready to...
Do the white edition with all white parts, white fan frames. At least the ugly blue and red parts down at the bottom. So all you're left is this, which wouldn't clash. But dude, that actually looks pretty neat in there. Well, remember we showed it didn't fit in the other case when we did the size review of this. So there you go. It's a middle tower as they call it, but it fits it. Now, okay, some things you need to think about while you're building here. Like I said, your cables, not a lot of room right here, so you have to be smart with your cable management. You do have grommets down here. Well, they're pass-throughs, no grommets there, which is kind of unfortunate because you have them everywhere else. Same thing with up here. But you can run your USB cables, your USB-C, your front panel and everything up through here. You could run your 24-pin, and depending on your motherboard, you might have to run USB 3 through here or something. Power supply cable could come right up through here. Only will it make it to the graphics card though if it were something like that. You know, the card fits, but you know, if you want to actually run this card in here, because of how close it is to the side panel, you're gonna have to end up using like the cable mod 90-degree adapters, which by the way, we have some on the way finally we can take a look at to see if they'll clear something like this. Based on what I've seen, it looks like the 90-degree adapter would clear this, but you're not using the standard adapter and you're not using even a native plug to clear that. It is far too close to the side panel, so keep that in mind. If you get a 90-degree adapter, it should, I say should, it should work. Things you haven't had to think about until this generation of, will my cable clear the side panel? Okay, well, whatever. Overall, I think the build quality is there. Even with all the side panels off, like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. Even with the side panel off, like, look at that, it's not very flexy at all. You've got big rubber feet. Okay, you got big feet with little rubber pads on the bottom there. So it's not sliding all around. It sits firm, it doesn't wiggle. And that's without any of the side panels on. So there you go. Other things to think about in terms of airflow, your only intakes are these guys in the back right here. There's nothing in the front. This is kind of turned into like a standard design. A lot of companies are doing it this way now. Solid panel in the front so you can see your components. Intake on the side. Here, they put this mid fan, and I would probably honestly run it back here if you want to know the truth. Because if I put it there and then I have a pass-through fan with a graphics card, well, I guess that would work because it goes up through it. Yeah, this could assist with the blow-through cooler, but I think personally, down here, blow it into the graphics card, which is gonna help. You have your exhaust here and your two intakes. Maybe you put at least an exhaust up here. Airflow on these kinds of chassis is weird because it has to make this turn and then it's got heat wants to rise, although it doesn't take much force to overcome convection. Any airflow will overcome convection. It's a very weak force. The mid plate, I don't feel like this is an area we should rely on too much for airflow. I think these two and this exhaust will handle this compartment just fine. You put this up here, because of the reverse fan, it's gonna have to go like that, which is where the cage is showing and then the RGB is squished between the panel and the fan. If you're gonna water cool this, not a whole lot of room here for radiator, reservoir, and top in terms of fittings. But you could go with a 240 rad here with the pump res combo mounted to that radiator, and then you could put the 360, if you put one on the top, fittings on this side, and then you'd be able to water cool this case pretty easily. So once again, like I said, Montech, a brand that we had never heard of until we went to Micro Center that day and found a pretty significant value. This one costs a bit more. Like I said, $93 US at the time of making this video. I'll put a link down below that you guys can check out to see what current pricing is, because it's always all over the place, especially as raw materials prices change, specifically like steel. The prices usually will fluctuate. But anyway, I like this blue. It looks neat. It's also available in, I believe they said white and black, and I think there's even a gray color. We have all three of them, but this is the only one we unboxed. I kind of want to do a white and blue build now. Like white parts in this sort of, they call it Morocco blue. To me, it looks more cobalt. Don't trust me, especially when I can't see blue properly. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Sound off down below if this is a case you'd spend 93 bucks on. I'm curious. That's where you guys would spend your money. Seems like a pretty good value. Build quality is there. Cable management might be a little bit on the tricky side because you don't have a lot of room right here, so you got to really plan and utilize the basement structure as much as possible. I would load this thing up with NVMEs and remove the cage entirely. That way you get all of that space in the bottom to hide wires and you know, controllers or whatever else that you have going on down there. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thank you to Montech for sending us this case to take a look at today. Like I said, all the information you need to check it out for yourself is down in the description below. As always, guys, we'll see you in the next one.